is not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. But like a miniature Buddha, covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
But it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
This episode is brought to you by Hack Motion. Hack Motion is a cutting-edge wrist sensor for teaching wrist motion for compressed tour-like shots. I spent some time with these guys down at the show, and I really enjoyed how easy it was to use, and the calibration time was super simple, and especially the biofeedback option that will definitely make for a more effective golf lesson for your students. You can use it with your iPhone, your iPad, and it gives your students the feel to go along with the reel as you teach the proper wrist motion for better club face control, which, as you know, is huge in the teaching game. Used by some of the top coaches in our industry, Hack Motion is a must for serious golf teachers, coaches, or players. Also, when ordering upon checkout, use the promo code GURU, G-U-R-U, to receive free shipping, which is a $30 value. For more information and to order, visit their website at hackmotion.com. HACKMOTION.com today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I am your host, Jason Sutton, and I am the Guru. On this episode, I'm very excited to have my good friend Nick Starchuck on the show. Nick was the 2013 PGA of Ontario Teacher of the Year and has worked at some really top clubs, including Glen Abbey, where he worked with Sean Foley years ago, as we get into. And he also had a short stint at the Gilchrist Golf Academy. So he has some great knowledge on juniors and just technology in general, as he has aligned himself with Foresight Sports and now CapToe, which is a great putting aid that has kind of come on the market the last couple of years, which we discuss in detail. More importantly, Nick is just such a great guy and really comes from the same cloth as I do, which he's willing to help young coaches and share his information and really start to drive our industry forward, which ultimately is the goal of this podcast and the goal of this project. So I couldn't have had a better guest than Nick Starchuck on the show, and we had just such a fun conversation, and you're just going to hear his passion and his willingness to help others come through as we talk about a variety of topics, which is always the case here on the Golf Guru Show. So without further delay, let's get to this awesome conversation with my good friend Nick Starchuck. Enjoy. Nick, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for taking the time. This is going to be a very exciting episode.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So we've been chatting a lot, as we do online, and kind of going through some of the things we're going to talk about. But I always like to take the listeners back to top coaches and their careers. So catch us up from the beginning, because I think it's always interesting to see the journey that you've taken to get to where you are today, and then we'll dive into some of these cool topics that we have.
Cool. Well, I've been teaching full time since about 2002. I graduated university in 2000. I went down to Kentucky on a scholarship, played some golf, and I was really into playing golf. Really not teaching. I didn't have any lessons growing up. I grew up in Ottawa, which is our nation's capital, and lessons and coaching just didn't exist. So I went down to school based on my, homemade basement golf swing, because, we have 5 months indoors up here. And when I graduated school, I thought, hey, maybe I'll try this golf thing. And I went and played the Canadian Tour. Didn't have the best results. I found that I could offer some advice to people who ended up making money while it costed me money. And in about 2004, I thought, I'm going to try and make a full-time career at this. So I moved to Toronto and went to a club called Glen Abbey, where I met Sean Foley. And I got to hang out with Sean Foley for 4 years. So you can imagine the influence I had there.
Sure. Been on the podcast, or very popular. Any stories or any good tales that you can tell that Sean won't get too mad about it.
Publicly, I don't know, but Sean treated us like he treated us so well. It was almost every day after work. He would say, "Hey guys, like, are we going?" And it would mean that we go to the local watering hole, and it was like a 2-beer limit, and he would always buy, and it would just be talking about life and golf and coaching.
That's
and
beautiful.
Just mentorship. Like, it was the ultimate in mentorship. And I don't think that Sean knew what he was doing at the time, but we would just be like. It was like he was showing us magic tricks, and then we would just stand there and go like, "Oh, what? Like, what?" And we would learn so much. I mean, we had an academy of about 8 guys back then, and I've never seen an academy to this day that had better people all in the same place. And I think we all credit that to Sean's awesome, ability to put his arm around us and say, "Hey, like, I listened to that last lesson and it was great," or, "Hey, like, what were you doing, man? That was garbage."
Right.
But he would work from 8 in the morning until 8 at night, 6 days a week. And then on his day off, he'd probably come in sometimes and just say, "Okay, guys, like, cancel your lessons. We're going to go hang out in the range and we're just going to talk. And we're going to just hit balls and we're going to kind of do a bunch of stuff that I'm into." And he was so far advanced on all of us that we got to learn. So we honestly had mentorship.
Teacher training from the beginning, right? I mean, I think, like you said, he probably didn't realize that he was just giving back to you guys, and obviously I know how that is now, and it makes him better because he's sharing and learning and probably growing a lot of the young teachers as you guys were. You had a lot of good coaches there too, right?
Oh, we had some awesome coaches there. And I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. I think that, he used us as a soundboard. He used us to say, "Hey, like, I wonder if I can say this, and what would these guys say?" And there were times he'd say stuff and it'd be like, "Yeah, the reason the guy slices is what Bob Marley said in Redemption Song." And this was his line. And we'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But he would try these things out on us before he would try it out on his clients. And I mean, I've never seen a teacher at that time that was, fully booked, 45, 50 lessons a week, one after another, booked out solid months in advance. So, he knew what he was doing, obviously, but he would test us out and try us out and kind of, test what we knew. And he didn't want to dig too deep because obviously he had a little more intel than we did, but he really used us as soundboards, I think. And we learned a bunch. But, Glen Abbey it still is a powerhouse of instruction. You just basically, as a new instructor, you sit there, the phone rings, and next thing you know, you're slammed.
Right.
So I took Sean's approach. I mean, I listened to your podcast, and it was kind of funny when he said that he got his juniors to basically go around the neighborhood and flyer mailboxes. Well, I copied him. I pretty much did the same thing, but I also got online. I got onto some local golf forums and said, "Hey, like, I'm a teacher, I'm at Glen Abbey. Who wants a lesson? I'll give it to you for free." So, for the first 2 years, I taught more lessons for free than I got paid, but my 3rd and 4th year was full, slammed, and paid. So, my whole model was give it away for free until people knew who I was. The word of mouth would spread, and someone would say, "Hey, I need a lesson. How much are you?"
Yeah,
so
that's so smart. I mean, you've heard me talk a lot about that is, you've got to get the experience. And a lot of times it's not the monetary value. It's you paying the price to learn, and you can't learn unless you're actually in there doing it, getting your hands dirty.
Right. I mean, I don't remember when he started talking about the 10,000 hour rule at the time, but it was basically how many lessons can I get under my belt? Because the more that I teach, the better I'm going to be. So if I'm sitting at the driving range for 12 hours a day, I don't want to be, searching the internet or sitting there doing nothing. I want to be actually teaching someone. So Glen Abbey was, like I said, a big powerhouse. Lots of people go through lots of corporate events, and I would just jump in a cart and whip around the course and hand out cards, and they'd be like, "Okay, well, thanks. How much are you?" And like, "Well, your first lesson's free. Come on out whenever you want." And every day after I would hand out, call it 30 or 40 cards, I'd have an inbox full of emails saying, "Thanks for the thing. Like, when can I see you?" So it worked really, really well for me. Oakville, where Glen Abbey is a very, there's lots of people, but lots of people with money. So it worked really, really well for golf lessons. So I was at Glen Abbey for 5 years. I moved on and opened up another golf academy with a guy named Ralph Bauer. Ralph's now coaching on tour.
I know Ralph. Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny Vegas and Kyle Stanley and who knows who else he's got right now. So Ralph and I did that for a couple years. I went down and worked, I trained under Gary Gilchrist for a while. And then I would say once I left the Gilchrist Academy in about 2010, I mean, I think you pretty much know my story after that.
Right.
Met up with Andy Plummer and, the Mac guys and just started to really learn everything I can until technology came out.
Right.
And then it was all about the radars and the force plates and all of that stuff. So, that's been kind of I don't want to say my niche, but that was my thing. I like technology. I like to measure stuff, and I like to use it in lessons.
So take us back to the Gary Gilchrist thing, because I like to get the stories and sort of, because I know you, everything that I've read researching your career, from what I didn't know, which we've known each other for several years. Mm-hmm. You consider him one of your mentors. What are some of the lessons that you learned from him? Gary can make you feel like you're indestructible. Like, he could blindfold you, put you in a highway in the middle of the road, and you would believe you would not get hit by a car. Like, okay. He just has this ability to... The ultimate coaching piece, right?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, I would watch his golf lessons and kind of look at it and go, like, really? Like, that's kind of what we're doing right now? I don't understand that, but I'm going to listen to Gary. It's his show. Let's go through it and see how he's doing it. Because we got to see all the pros he worked with. Yanni Seng came around for a while when she was number one. And so we got to see how he reacted with pros. And I'd never seen that before. When Sean Foley got with Stephen Ames and all those guys, he kind of left Toronto. So I never got to see a guy work with a pro right there for hours. And Gary really made everything about building confidence. You need to build their confidence, Nick. And it was just like, we all just stood there and went like, man, this guy is the man. Like, and this is a boarding school with 100 plus kids paying close to $100,000 a year each. And, we're looking at it going, wow, like, Gary just trusted me with 8 kids to help work with them and, and go do your thing. So I think I was his first certified instructor, went through all of the certification that he had at the time, which to me was kind of old hat. It was K-Vest, which I already learned about. I learned about Gary's his 6-step swing, which was very, very similar to Ledbetter, because he came from the Ledbetter train of thought. So I had read all David's books, obviously, and so it was really easy for me to jump in and do the swing stuff. But when it came to how you get someone ready for a tournament, man, he taught us about prioritizing. And, the week that they're not playing a tournament, you jump into mechanics. But the week that they're playing a tournament, you get on the golf course, you learn to hit shots. It's no more swing. It's no more step 6. It's just go and play golf. And he really taught me about, training, pre-comp, comp, and then rest. And that was his 4-step cycle. And I still use that to this day.
Are there any lessons, or not say lessons, but like stories that you can remember of him working with players where I think it sounds like he's almost like the Butch Harmon of the women's game, right? So, because he's got so many great players, and that's what Butch is so great at, is just, kicking them in the tail when they need to, making them practice, where it's not just about mechanics. Because I think the best coaches out there are getting the most out of their players when they may not have their A game going into that week. Was there any examples of that?
I think that the big forte that they had was that it was unbelievably structured and organized. So it could be the first of the month, and I knew what we were doing on the 18th. I knew that the afternoon of the 18th that we had to do what Gary called generic drills, which is standing there swinging the club in the air, or it was, short game stuff, and then we get on the golf course. So he had it all planned out. And so if I knew it, so did the kids. So at no point did the kids ever show up and go, hey, what are we doing today? Like, what we're doing. You've got the list. It's pinned to your wall, So it was structured. It was organized. So I think that the players knew what was important based on how often they did it, right? We always did putting, so that was obviously important. So it was almost like they never needed to get ready. They were always ready. And that, again, it was a complete eye-opener for me, because it was it just showed me how to actually structure golf coaching rather than jump in there for an hour and kind of, fix some elbows and some legs and, okay, you got it, now I'll see you in a week. It was, okay, you got to work on this stuff, but I'm going to see you at fitness in 2 hours and then dinner after that. And then we're going to work on your math because you got a test tomorrow. I constantly saw these players. So it taught me a lot about relationships too. I mean, if you're always with these guys, you feed them a bad dinner, they're going to remember and they're not going to listen to the lesson the next day.
That's such a great point. Yeah, it's so much more than just the instruction.
Oh, absolutely. It was all about relationships. And, the 8 players that it was like 12 players that I had a chance to work with. I still talk to them to this day, probably on a weekly basis. One of the little guy, not little anymore. He's working for True Spec in New York.
I was going to say, how long ago was this?
Yeah, I know, it's 10 years. So some of these kids are like 25 years old now.
Yes.
But like, I still talk to them through social media. They're constantly asking me questions. They still call me coach. Like, it's really cool.
That is cool.
So it was awesome. We had a great environment. We had like Scott Schaefer was there, who's now the lead instructor at Bishopsgate. Chema Sanchez was there, who's now the lead instructor at Championsgate for lead. And Spencer Dennis was there, who started Edufy.
Wow.
So like Spencer and I talked every single day for I don't know how many months about, like, how would we do it differently if this was ours? Like, what would we like to see differently? And, not once did he ever mention an online app.
Yeah, but you can see the influence now, right? It was so structured that it makes sense. It was the evolution of technology and communication with your students.
It was, absolutely. And how can you keep track of what they did yesterday and still touch base with them tomorrow? And that's where I think that, Edu Coach Now is what it's called now. I think it's a wonderful tool, and it screams Spencer's whole demeanor about golf coaching it's the relationship and the constant contact.
That's cool. So where did you go from there? I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but I like to get those caveats because I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, after that, I came back to Canada and started teaching at a driving range up here that was linked up with the Core Academy, which was basically Sean Foley's junior academy down in Orlando. They had a little satellite thing up here in Toronto. So I worked there for a couple of years, a couple summers. And when I moved back up here, I really focused on what I learned from Andy and Mike, where it was all about day schools. So I killed the day schools up here for 2 years. I found that people got the best results after practicing all day rather than 1 hour. Okay, I'll see you in a week. And that's what I did for a couple years, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. And then a private club in the area called Mississauga Golf and Country Club had a new director of golf, and he called me out of nowhere and introduced himself and said, "Would you like to come work here?" And I said, "Yeah, like absolutely. I'll definitely be there." And I remember hanging up the phone, going, "I don't know what he's going to pay me." We didn't talk about that.
Oh my
I just accepted the job because he still to this day, I think he's the best director of golf I've ever met. He's now at Royal Montreal. And, he said, "Look, like, I'd love you to come in because I need someone that can do a little bit of teaching, that knows a little bit of technology." And at the time I was representing Flight Scope here in Canada. So I jumped in there and I spent 6 years at Mississauga Country Club, and it was absolutely awesome. I loved it there. It had the members were great. I think we had something like, you're at a big club too. We had over 35% of our members engaged in lesson activities.
Wow, that's huge.
Like 500 people. So it was a wonderful thing that we got to create at Mississauga between, bringing up the 8 other instructors that, were pro shop guys or back shop guys. We got them busy every week in some type of instructional thing. But the members there were thirsty for really good golf lessons. So I remember one week I did 91-hour golf lessons.
Wow.
90. And that's still my record to this day. And I'll never do it again because I think I went crazy. But it was it was an opportunity to, do my own thing, basically, stand on the range and just have member after member combined say, "When can I see you next?" And the worst thing was, like, I can't see you for like a week. I'm sorry. And letting them know that it's from sun up to sundown that I'm here. It's not like I'm taking it off because I want to go to a patio tonight. Like, I didn't even know what those were for a couple of years. This was full on individual golf lessons. And my last 2 years there, we had 52 wins for all my junior programs over 2 years. 52.
That's impressive.
It was awesome. We had such a cool environment, great support, and, access to one of the best golf courses in Canada almost whenever we wanted. So I could do everything that, when we sit down over drinks and say, "Hey, what would be the best coaching program or coaching model?" Like, well, a little bit of range and a whole lot on golf course. Yeah, that's what I had. And it was awesome. It was really cool.
And so what year was that?
That would have been 2012 to 2017.
Okay.
So 6 seasons there. And it was, like I said, it was absolutely terrific. And since then, I've kind of branched off onto my own to kind of do my own thing a little bit away from a club where, the responsibilities aren't so big. And since then, I run all my golf schools here in Toronto. I'm at TPC Toronto, and I do a lot more work in the winter than I do the summer. My winter season is really busy, and from November until April, I'm really busy in my studio, which happens to be in my home.
As I was going to ask you, I've seen the videos, and you've got an incredible indoor facility. That is so cool. I didn't realize that was your house.
Yeah, when we looked for a new home, we looked for something that had a big enough room, a 20 by 20 room with a tall enough ceiling, and we managed to find one with a garage big enough. So we outfitted the garage like it looks like a living room right now.
Yep.
And I've got all the technology that I've used over the years, from the cameras to the force plates, quad, and I got 180,000 different courses we can play down there. I can hear one of my juniors banging balls down there right now.
That's great.
It's phenomenal. The parents know that it's a safe spot. The camera's always on, so if they want to log in online to see what their kids are doing, they could do it anytime. It's a wonderful environment, and you know what? Being able to wake up at 7:45 and Superman myself ready and go downstairs with a cup of coffee ready to teach at 8. It's awesome.
That is awesome. That might be my new goal.
A lot of people say that, and I think it's really cool. Being involved with Foresight Sports up here, the guys that the distributor for Foresight, Aaron Hardy, he's also probably the biggest indoor room builder, if I could call it that, studio builder in Canada. So when he put this in my home, it was like I'm gonna have people come in here and say, "How'd you do this? How much is it? Who do I have to contact?"
Yeah,
and it's probably every month someone says, "Okay, give me Aaron's name. We need to go and build this in my house." So it's almost like a showroom for him, but it's a perfect studio for me.
Awesome. So before we get into the technology stuff we're going to talk about, take me back to that previous job. You won 2013 PGA of Ontario Teacher of the Year.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you, and how did that come about?
I think that was a big thing for me.
That's huge.
I worked hard and did a lot of the right things, I believe, in order to be recognized by my peers, because it's a peer. The peers have to nominate you. I taught a whole lot of local guys. Obviously, didn't charge them. I'm not going to charge my peers. And someone voted for me. They wouldn't tell me who. At the time, I was representing FlightScope, and FlightScope was actually the sponsor for that award. So
wow.
It was a nice little fit. And when I got the award, I was blown away. It meant everything to me. It's still the thing. The trophy itself is still sitting downstairs on my mantle that I see every day, because it's a reminder of, in 2013, like, you worked your butt off, and this is what your reward was. I'm not going to forget that. I'm really grateful for it.
Well, it's more than just that year, and when you win Teacher of the Year, it's so much more of a culmination, I think, of your entire career and everything that you've done building up, and it's a testament to all that work. And then after you win those types of awards, at least it was for me, because I never planned on winning anything, it like made me work harder, right? So it made me like, you almost want to validate like what you've become and even do more. Is that right? You find that?
Absolutely. And I think that the way that I've looked at it is, I'm looking at it as though that, okay, who are the guys that are making the decisions on who's winning this award? And are they knowledgeable enough? Do they know enough about the region to know who the best guys are? For the longest time, I kept voting for Scott Coates because, Scott hadn't won it yet. And I'm like, this guy's one of the best in the world. But I don't think that the committee or the golf community that was chosen for the selection knew what Scott was up to, because maybe they weren't on Instagram, and he's at Hamilton Country Club, which is a fairly private club. So, I think that nowadays it's about getting this committee to know who the best guys are, almost in anticipation of who's going to win it. Because, there's a lot of guys in our business that teach golf, but they also work 50 or 60 hours a week in a pro shop. But then there's the guys like you and I who do 50, 60 hours a week just teaching golf. And I believe that those are the ones that need to find the recommendations and the recognition for it, because that's how they get busier. Like, that's a huge bonus for them to fend for their family. They don't get a salary from working in a pro shop. So I really believe that over the past few years, my friends have won the award, and I think they've made great decisions. So I know they're on the right track. I know the guys are, they're out there listening, and they're looking at who the guys, who the teachers are that are trying the hardest, that are out there learning the most, but that are also growing the game through helping their peers.
Right.
I'm really fortunate in a city where I've got Scott Coutts 15 minutes down the road. I've got Doug Laurie, who's 15 minutes in the other direction. Liam Mucklow's an hour north of Toronto, and Jason Hellman's 30 minutes east of Toronto. I could go on and on about some of the great golf teachers around here. And when everybody starts to recognize who those guys are, then I feel as though that they're paying attention. So I don't look at them as my competition at all. I look at them as being able to bounce ideas off of and talk to people that are, I don't want to sound like, egotistical, but at my level, like, Scott Coutts and I can talk about, hey, like 6B1 golf machine. Like, what do you think about this? Right. I have someone I can talk to about that. I go walk into any other golf club and mention golfing machine. They're like, how much is it? Is it made of metal? It just would get it. So I'm fortunate to have guys like me that are passionate like me, close to me, to be able to say, hey, what's Doug doing over there with all these amazing kids under 10?
Right.
And what's Scott doing over there with all of his members, but also, worldwide, So Toronto's an awesome place to be in. There's 6 million people within 45 minutes of my house. So our market is wide with golfers. So that's why I don't look at them as my competition. If I'm only looking for 30 or 40 full-time golfers, coaches, or students for the year, that means there's, 100,000 more people out there. So I'm happy to say, hey, Sean Casey's over at Glen Abbey, go see Sean. He's awesome. Or go see Doug, or go see Scott, because, I'm full. It's nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that attitude. And we need more people like that in our industry. Like you said, it's iron sharpens iron, man. And I think the more we collaborate, which has sort of been my vision in the last couple of years, I used to do the big workshops and bring guys in. Now I want to just collaborate, like with Scott Coates, had him in last year. And it's just, guys like that make us all better. You're so fortunate to have those guys near you. So talk a little bit about what's going on with you now. Cause I know you've done so many professional development seminars, and just like me with biomechanics and fitness and mental and everything. How are you bringing that to your little studio now, and then the job you're doing? And let's get into the couple of technology pieces you're aligned with.
Well, right now, the biggest thing that I'm in on, which I saw your tools too, Mach 3.
Yep.
Man, I'm loving this stuff, tying ropes to the tree and whipping things around in the backyard. My neighbors think I'm crazy, but I'm interested in this stuff. I think it's really cool. I was fortunate enough to invite Scott Fawcett up here last year.
Yep.
We did the very first decade program here in Canada in my home.
I love it.
after a few bottles of wine, so you can imagine how much fun that was for us 10 guys, us 10 pros.
I'm jealous.
So, I'm taking what I've learned from Scott and what, I'm doing with my own stats programs and trying to blend it in together so that I can, bring in 5 or 6 of my juniors at one time to do a seminar on course strategy and practice round. I call it practice round training, because people need training on how to play a practice round.
100%.
When my juniors come back and say, hey, I shot 74 in my practice round today, I'm like, so? That's actually bad, because you're going to...
Why did you hole out every time?
Exactly.
That's the first question.
So it's being able to bring them in and to, give them a little bit of, high level mental strategy stuff. We've got the focus band, so I'm able to sit here and we're able to talk about hey, how do you feel when, I'm seeing the focus band light up? Like, what are you feeling right now? We need to blend this in while you play. So I'm taking some of those aspects in. But from a technology standpoint, I'm really involved with Foresight Sports. The guys down in San Diego have really taken me in and asked a lot of information and what I would like to see different in terms of their software and their hardware. But I'm really interested in their putting suite. So being able to to discuss how quad picks up the putting stroke has been amazing because, I've always wanted a Quintec, which measures the ball roll, and now quad does it. I'm really infatuated by that right now. I'm doing it all inside. So when you see it on turf, the numbers are totally different on turf than they are on grass. So I'm collecting all my information now, and I can't wait to get outside onto the grass to see how it changes a little bit. And then as on top of putting is CapToe.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that. We talked before the podcast. I spent a couple hours with David Orr. Mm-hmm. And I talked to the guys last year, and I think it just wasn't quite ready, but they were definitely onto something. And I know they've got some really smart guys working for that company. So talk about the updates on that and how that helped you and what you've learned from it, because I'm really interested in getting one.
Yeah, I think that first of all, CapToe is an unbelievable education tool. And, as you mentioned, I had David come stay with me for 3 days here, and he taught me a mound of stuff that I didn't even think about before. I don't want to say he taught me stuff. He just he mentioned things that made me think and go and research.
Right.
Because I think that, we both know David fairly well, mm-hmm. and he comes from Mac O'Grady, who's like, hey, there's 5 things you need to do in the downswing, and he tells you 3. And you're like, wait a minute, what are the other 2? So David's the kind of guy that's like, you need to figure out how someone chooses their aim. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, go figure that out. Yeah. So he really led me to water. And so I feel as though with CapToe, the education side of things is phenomenal. It gives us so much information. But what I say most, my tagline for CapToe is that it not only tells you what happens at impact, but it tells you what happened during the entire stroke, so you can figure out the when and the why it happened at impact. So let's just say the club face is open 2 degrees at impact. Well, let's find out where it gets open 2 degrees during the stroke. Oh, we notice it's just after transition. Well, why is that happening? Well, let's take a look at the rotation of the putter, or, the torque that the player puts into the putter. Oh, notice the player torques it in transition. So it helps me really dig down to the tumor of the problem. So I'm not just sitting there putting Band-Aids on people. I really believe that the putting stroke is such a small thing that at the higher level, you can't just videotape someone and say, hey, look what you're doing. Like
100%.
It doesn't work like that. It's like, where are you putting pressure into the handle? Like, is your idea to hit up on the ball so you're pulling up on the handle and you change the hub path and create acceleration? Like, it really gave me a big picture concept of what's going on in the putting stroke. And now that I can actually measure it, I'm finding that it's an eye-opening product. So CapToe's really given me the reins to almost represent North America, to be able to do training for people. I can do the certifications for people. I found other ambassadors like Dennis Sales and Mike Michaelides and Matt Paulsenberg on the other side of Canada. And these guys are helping me get the word out because I can only do so much. But CapToe's also given me the opportunity to potentially get out there on tour as a tour rep. So last week down at the Arnold Palmer, I went down with my CapToe and got inside the ropes, and I showed all the guys from all the different putting companies, from Lab, Direct Force to Axis One, and these guys are just like, oh my God, I've never seen a tool like this before. Like, I need one of these. And so, we're not giving them to tour pros. We're asking tour pros to buy them, and so far they're all buying them. But these reps were just like, how do I buy one of these? Like, I need one of these to understand putting, and I can help guys get into this new even roll putter if I have something that tells me what they're doing. And it's a $2,000 product. It's portable. You can walk around the whole green with it. Like, we walked on the golf course with it. So, I'm able to say, hey, like, you've got a right to left putt here. Typically this is your stroke, but when you have a left to right putt, everything goes out the window. Like, right. It's not the same baseline anymore. So what's the secret or the tip or the Band-Aid that we can put on to help you get the ball rolling online on those breaking putts that you're not very good at? So I had a great opportunity to work with a player last week. I'm not going to mention who he is. I don't think he wants me to do that, but I watched him play on Friday at the Players, and he had his best putting round in about 4 years. He made everything in sight. You might be able to figure out who that is now. But it was like, I was looking at the TV, watching him make the strokes we were talking about, yelling at the TV, going, oh my God, he's doing it. And then the ball would go in the hole.
So talk about that progression then. I mean, you don't have to mention his name, but like, I love the real world examples of, he was doing this. This is what I saw. What was the outcome? And then what was the fix?
Well, initially, I asked him, how do you go about, lining up your putt? Well, I look at it and then I kind of hit it. I'm like, well, do you aim it? Nope. Do you pick a spot near the hole? Nope. Do you pick something on your line? Nope. I'm like, so how do you do it? He's like, I stand over and feel it. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. So he knew that he misaimed his putt, that he aimed in a certain direction. So we talked about aim a little bit.
So after you showed him the data, right? Like you're saying you used the device.
I haven't even touched the device yet. I'm just
okay. He's aware. He's aware of his alignment.
Yep. Yeah. And, there was another pro that was on the putting green at the same time that says, if that putt's not for $1,000,004, he doesn't care. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, that's right. If I'm not making a putt for $1,000,000, I don't care if it goes in or not. And I'm like, okay, like, wow, this is going to be some session. Like maybe I need a helmet for this one.
Yeah.
So we went through all the data and we recognized that, his acceleration profile on his stroke was not very good. And his concept was, well, I need to accelerate the putter through the ball.
Ah, okay. So over accelerator.
Like, totally.
Yep.
So he's already aiming right. And then he's accelerating the putter through the ball with a push stroke. And I'm like, no wonder you're missing everything to the right.
There you go.
So like this makes total sense. So we talked about the acceleration profile. And basically I said, have you ever watched Brandt Snedeker putt? He goes, yeah, it looks like shit. And I'm like, okay, but he stops his putter basically right when the putter hits the ball. And can you show me that? And that's what he was working on. And putts were going in left, right, and center. There was his aim improved somehow. He started to aim it a little bit closer to the hole, but he started to get his ball rolling online so much better. I dug through the stats and I recognized through the stats that there's a stat called approach putt, which is basically how far do you leave your putt on average for after your first putt.
Uh-huh.
And he was typically 2 feet 7 inches. Now, where do you think 2 feet 7 inches puts him in the rankings?
It's probably the last third.
Dead last.
Wow.
Like bottom 5 of the world.
Yeah. Okay. I knew it was not good, but what? Like, let me ask you this. So that's something that I've been kind of dealing with a little bit. Thinking about the Scott Fawcett dispersion pattern, is where do you think the center of dispersion is, or do you even look at that? Like if you got somebody, if you measured long versus short, where I'm trying to figure out where my player's center dispersion is on certain slopes, and obviously it's ever changing in putting, which I understand, but some of my more analytical guys really kind of get into that and understand. If they're missing it, if it's 2.7 short, that's a big difference in 2.7 long.
Right. And unfortunately, well, to give you an example, like 2.2 is like top 10 in the world. So we're talking 5 inches between top 10 and bottom 10.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
It's really tight. So I wasn't aware. I didn't know whether he was either leaving it short or long or left or right. So I had to watch how he did it. So because of his over acceleration, because of his miss aim, we actually found out that the majority of the time that 2.7 was left and right.
I was going to say it could be side to side as well. So it probably was right for that guy.
Right. So I was talking about his acceleration profile, and he's like, well, if I'm not accelerating it right, then my distance control should be bad, right? And I had to bite my tongue because I didn't have an answer until I watched him putt. And I'm like, no, like your distance control seems to be fine, but you miss your line by 2 feet 7 inches when it gets to the hole. So it was definitely a left and right thing. And what CapToe has actually is CapToe has a practice module where I can set up a target, call it from 10 feet, and you roll 10 balls to a tee in the ground, and it will tell you where your golf balls end up. So it'll give you a blueprint of saying, hey, you're a good speed putter that always hits, that majority of the time hits it left of your target. So when it comes to dispersion patterns, it helps me. I mean, anybody can do a dispersion pattern with 10 golf balls on the putting green, but having it on a screen on an iPad in front of you, showing you 6 balls were left, 2 balls were in, 2 balls were right, that where you aim, you actually leave it more on the left side of that. So the big fix for this player was really getting him to understand where he aimed, where he thought he was aiming. So we did a couple little aim drills to kind of, just help him see the line a little bit better. But the overall kind of fix with the CapToe was to get him to understand that because you know that you don't aim it right, you have a compensation in the path of your stroke. which he said, yeah, I cut my putts. I'm like, okay, terrific. And after we started working on his acceleration, the pattern started to turn into like 0.2 degree draw pattern.
Wow.
And you're not cutting these anymore. And he was blown away. That was the only aha moment that we had during the whole session. He's like, wow, like I don't cut it anymore. Oh my gosh.
Because he was trying to fix the start direction with the path.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can imagine when that happens and he maybe, hits the toe or closes the face, he pulls it. Or if it's a long putt and he actually cuts it, it might, end up right of the hole. So It wasn't so much of a distance control thing. It was an aiming and hitting your line. And actually, like, I wish I just had a big can of spray paint and said, look, go spray paint your line for me so you can see something. But that's not his style.
Yeah.
So having to adapt to his style was really, really new for me. But I felt like half the time I should have bit my tongue, and the other half I'm like, okay, I think I said the right thing. I saw his eyes kind of go, oh, and then I just shut up.
Right. You were watching his body language. You were trying to checking out the habits. Yeah. I mean, that's just what top coaches do, right? I mean, it's so much of that. And you've heard me talk about the EQ stuff, that all of those 10,000 hours has afforded you to see those tactics and see what and then when you get to a good player like that, or the highest level, I think a lot of times we're afraid to like mess them up, and we're afraid to say something, or sometimes maybe we talk too much.
Totally. Like, CapToe has something called putt plane and shaft plane and putt kernel, which is basically a 3D view of how the golfer is moving their body. So think of it like a multiple center of rotation, right? So something that I never want to show a player. And he asked for it. Hey, what's this? I'm like, oh, no, right? It's like he gets his TrackMan for the first time. What's vertical swing plane? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to know that. You're the pilot, just fly the plane. So for 20 minutes of it, I'm sitting there trying not to explain the stuff that he wanted to know. But at the end of the day, I really made it simple to him to say, hey, like, this is the kind of stuff that CapToe's showing us right now. Here's one thing. Like, what I don't like to do when I'm showing technology is turn it into a golf lesson. I try to keep it like it's a data session. Like, this is what it is. Take it for what you want. But when a guy like that looks at you and says, so what should I do? Okay, you've been like one of my favorite players for like 10 years now. Yeah, I'm going to tell you.
Now you got to do it.
Like, I got to do it because I'm never going to have this chance again. So that was it. It was, give him a couple little tweaks. I didn't go near his putter. I didn't go near how he set up to the ball or his ball position. Like, I'm not going to mess with him like that. It was just, you need to stop your putter short. Your follow through's too long.
Yeah.
And how am I going to get the ball to the hole? Well, it needs to move away from the ball faster, and you need to feel a touch of lag from transition so it still moves faster, and then it slows down into the ball at the right speed, and you hit your line all of a sudden. He's like, well, how does that make sense? I'm like, well, just try it, do it. And all of a sudden, face angle started coming back square. Like I said, the path was square, and it started to create a draw pattern. The ball rolled better, and he's just like, wow, like, this is really cool. All from this acceleration stuff. I'm like, that's it. That's all it was. He had one of Phil Kenyon's Vizio mats on the ground,
right?
And he's like, I use this all the time. And you know how John Graham stands over and he videotapes it to see if it stays online? He was not online at all. It was the worst mat he could have had. But he had two tees in the end of the mat, and those two tees were at the shortest gate, and he rolled it through every time. So why am I going to tell him? What am I going to say? Hey, you need a 26-degree arc mat? Stick with this one. You're rolling it straight. Just don't let your putter hit those tees out there, And it was a really cool, at the end of it, an eye-opening experience. He looked at me and he pulled out his wallet and he goes, how much is this thing? And I'm like, well, hold on a sec. Like, you got to go through and buy it from the people in Italy, blah, blah, blah. And he bought it on the spot.
Wow.
He's like, good, want this. This is awesome. For CapToe is a tool for coaches. And I know you know the same thing in this business, that golf pros love deals. When I was at the PGA show representing CapToe, everybody came by and said, hey, like, if you give me a discount, like, I can put it out on my social media. And I'm like, oh, hold on a sec. What's your name? 126 followers, and you know them all. Like, do you think that you're this is the first time you're going to get a $2,000 payment for a tweet? Like, no, it's not going to happen. And then Brad Faxon walks up and buys one out of his pocket. And it's like, okay, Brad bought one. Joe, you need to buy one too. Like, you're not getting it for free when Brad Faxon just bought one.
Exactly.
So we've been really fortunate in getting it into, I want to say there's 5 PGA Tour players right now that use it. And they're all head over heels with the information. And the best part about it is that I either get a call from one of their coaches who's, most of these guys have big name coaches. So it's like, wow, I get to meet this guy today. Cool.
Yeah.
Or I get a text from the guy saying, hey, can we talk later on tonight? It's like, yeah, of course we can. Like, I just watched you finish top 10 at Torrey Pines and you want to talk to me about putting? Yeah, let's do it. So it's really cool to see how the pros have embraced it and how the coaches are embracing it. But, we set that price point out there of $2,000 US so that it's not breaking the bank, but it's also not something that is discounted because it's not a consumer product. This is for coaches.
Yeah, I love that swing plane update that you're talking about. Now, it maybe isn't the greatest thing to show the player, but it's really cool when you're into the sort of the physics of what the club needs to do. And that's what me and David probably talked for an hour on that one little update. And I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah, it gives me a blueprint of how the golfer is moving their body to power the putter. So, it has 2 things called handling and trembling, which is basically forces and torques. Mm-hmm. So, new age stuff, really cool. I'm not sure if people own those words yet or not, but really cool, forces and torques in the putter. And when I'm looking at that 3D body image and the 3D motion, like, it tells me what they're doing. So if the golfer says, hey, like, I take the Dave Pelz approach where I need to rock my shoulders around the top of my back, and the 3D thing shows me that, great. You're doing what your concept of putting is. But if you're like Stan Utley, who wants to rotate the forearms a little bit and the putt kernel's in the wrong spot, then your concept's not matching what you do. So either we need to change your concept or change your move.
Yeah.
And that's been really fun to do because, the amateur golfer thinks they're doing something that they're not. But so far, all the pros that I've worked with that have told me what they think they need to do with the putting stroke, it shows up. Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, even if it's wrong.
Well, the nice thing about powering the putter is that there really is no wrong way to do it. If you can create an acceleration profile that matches the harmonic resonance, which, Sam Putt Lab, which I've seen you have as well,
yep.
Same type of thing, right? The putter actually has to decelerate as it comes into the golf ball. When you start to be able to take a look at this stuff and measure this stuff, and it doesn't matter how they're doing it, but some of the stuff that I really like with CapToe is within the 3D is they actually have a radius. So the radius, I'll get a little deep here for a sec.
No, I was going to ask you about that. That's perfect.
The putt kernel, which is the big green circle that you see on the app, the further that is away from the sweet spot, the longer the radius is. So this is kind of what I mentioned to people. If you attach a putter to the ceiling of your room and you hang it down plumb, right, and you let that thing go back and forth, it's going to have a fairly straight path and the face isn't going to rotate very much. But the shorter the radius, the more arc the path is going to be, and therefore the more requirement there is to rotate the putter face along that path. So the longer the radius on the golfer, basically, I'll just, for lack of a better term, the more square the putter is going to be. It's going to have less of arc rotation. It's going to have less of putter face rotation around that arc. So when I'm looking at this stuff, if the putt kernel is too short to the putt, too close to the sweet spot, then we've got a lot of movement. So my example that I use is like if you watched Arnold Palmer in his prime when he was putting, right? He'd get in there and he'd basically give it like full flexion extension of the wrists. Right? No shoulders, no arms, just like click, click. So his putt kernel would basically be in the middle of the grip, in the middle of his hands, like the coupling point. So you can imagine that the radius now is 32 inches. Where if you look at Bernhard Langer, who's still got that thing anchored up on his chest, right? And he's going ahead and doing his thing. That radius being so much longer makes a straighter arc and has less rotation of the putter face. So which one do you think would be better?
Yeah, unless they're, like you said, twisting the heck out of the grip, which that's cool that you can actually measure some of that because we're trying to look at it with the naked eye, right? I mean, it's and obviously I use Sam, but I would love to have CapToe just for it's more portable. That was the big thing I loved was it's so easy to set up and it's something you can use out on the putting green. Even though you can move Sam, obviously it's just a little bit more difficult.
True. Yeah. And, from all of this rotation of the shaft and the rotation of the face, some friends of mine that also have CapToe around the world, we're starting to test what the grip does to the putting stroke. And we're noticing that the bigger the grip, the more the putter rotates, the more the shaft twists.
Boy, that throws a little bit in the face of the bigger grips. We always thought it was less rotation. I never believed it, so I'm glad to hear you say that.
But this is the cool thing. Yeah. It's not the bigger the grip, the more it goes from closed to open. Not open. It's not rotating more open.
Oh, I see.
It's actually not rotating enough.
The under twisters.
Yeah, so it totally threw me for another loop when I started looking into the big grips. So, and then there's some players, because some of the big grips nowadays are really flat on the top, they try and keep that flat part like square to their target line. So now the putter goes closed and open, and we see the putt plane not even in the person's body. It's now on the other side of vertical because they're making what David Orr calls a smiley face.
Right.
So a smiley face and inversion. That's right. So the putter grip has such a massive effect on how we use that tool that it has to match up with what the golfer's doing. And I mean, if I go down to my workshop in my basement right now, I have more super strokes cut in half than any other putting stroke or any other grip down there.
Taking them off.
Taking them off, putting on like the blackout, something nice and small, and all of a sudden the putter's not twisting as much.
Wow.
It's really, really cool. So I talked to a lot of guys down at the API last week about it from different putter companies, including the guy from Superstroke. And the founder of Axis One was there, that new putter that Justin Rose is using. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I never thought of this. It totally makes sense. This is the physics about it. And he was honestly like walking around in a circle thinking to himself, like, this is like mind boggling. Like, this is amazing stuff. So I think I got some of those guys onto a different train of thought, kind of similar to the way that David Orr's shown me some different things to think about. Mm-hmm. That, the bigger the putter stroke doesn't necessarily mean the putter's going to stay square to something longer. It's actually not.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So it's I'm looking forward to getting a big box of the P2 grips. I've got the lab guys from Direct Force sent me some putter grips, and I've got a bunch of Super Strokes coming, and I'm going to do a full-on, test and see how all this is going to work and see if there's any, maybe there's a trend or a similarity or something, or maybe it's just totally unique to the golfer and the golfer needs to test both. But if that's the case, you put a $20 Super Stroke on or a $10 Lampkin on for $30, you can test your grip. I'm pretty sure golfers are going to do that all day.
Absolutely. So I know you've tested it against Foresight. How is that coming along? Do you think that's getting better, or is it just a different measurement?
It's from a face perspective, it's pretty similar. From an angle of attack perspective, again, very similar. I tested with Sam as well. Mm-hmm. And the numbers they're really, really close. They're some people feel as though that it's still a little bit off. I'm still trying to convince my good friend John Graham that they're very similar. But we all know John, and he wants the truths in the data, and I love it. I love him for it. Yeah. But when it comes to quad, the one thing I'm finding is that there's a differential in the path. I'm typically most of my players are typically cut across the golf ball 1 or 2 degrees, and I find that with the quad, I'm like my own stroke goes into out, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the placement of the cameras. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure, but the majority of the time, the path is the one that is the most different, which kind of is scary. Like, that's a big thing to be different from 2 degrees left to now 1 degree right.
Yeah, that's huge.
But the ball still rolls down the same line and it goes in. So I'm still kind of working on that, but I'm really fortunate to be able to be, close enough with Rick Kuehler over at Foresight Sports. He's there. He's the top dog there, and he's available anytime I want to call him on his way to work, and we talk about this stuff. And he likes the information that I'm giving him. But he wants to know, like, why is there a difference and what's going on? So I know that he's working with his engineers and his researchers just as hard as I am to try and, make sure that the putting suite with Quad is perfect, to the best of their ability. Sorry, nothing's perfect, but great to the best of their ability. And, I love the guys at Foresight for continually pushing forward with something new, something upgraded, something updated, and something improved. And they're just like CapToe. So with CapToe, the last thing I asked for was, I actually want, we can track the path of the top of the putter, the butt of the club, but I want the acceleration profile of that path. So they're going to put it in.
Nice.
That's the next update. So anytime people come up with updates, they put them in. And I know David's given them a list, and within 2 days, boom, there it is. It's in.
That's what I love about it. Yeah, it's like he's giving them, he's like, we need this, and then all of a sudden it shows up. I'm like, that is awesome. And it's good to have you guys, smart coaches that can give them the information from our side, because it's going to do nothing but push that product along and then help us to get better.
It is, absolutely. And their customer service is world class, and their ability to update is even faster than anything I've ever seen. And they're really eager to get this out, to have more people use it. And I think that, we're getting the right ambassadors on board. We're doing the right amount of marketing for how early the company is in its existence. It's 2 years old now.
Right.
But the founder, Luca is like the Stephen Nesbitt of Italy. He knows 3D engineering as good as anybody I've ever met. And he showed me he has a back-end system called 4D putting, which has basically got every 3D motion of every athletic movement mapped out, so that he knows when the putter does this, then the body had to work in this direction. So if you set up with CapToe and you make some really goofy looking stroke, something like a Charles Barkley golf swing kind of thing, you'll see the 3D avatar move like that. Elbow flares, head goes back, shoulders go up. It's shocking how accurate their 3D avatar representation is. And from seeing this system down at the PGA show that he showed us, kind of privately in the level 2 certification, there's only 9 of us in there. I was looking at this thing going, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. He's like, well, I tell you what, so here's a putting stroke. What if the golfer didn't have elbows? Let's lock out the elbow joints. This is how it would work. What if we locked out the wrist joints? This is how it would work. What if we locked out all the joints? This is how it would work. And it's a simulation kind of what would happen if, because he's so far down the road of what happens when someone moves the putter. He is an absolute genius, and I almost want to go and learn Italian just so I can communicate with him better, because it's phenomenal.
Great.
If you haven't read his book yet, it's one of the best books I've ever read on putting. And there's a piece in it, I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a piece in it. He refers to the acceleration of the putter is like someone swinging on a swing. If you don't pump your legs at the right time, you're not moving.
So share the name of the book. That's a great segue.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I don't have it here in front of me.
That's okay.
I feel ridiculous for not knowing this. But it's the first part of the book, it doesn't go into, hey, this is what face is, and it's not a user guide, so to say. This is how putting is. This is how harmonic resonance works. Zero in putting, that's what it's called. Zero in putting.
Okay.
And this is how it's supposed to go. So, we've heard a lot, is the putting stroke a pendulum? Well, it is a pendulum. It's a type of a pendulum. It's not a grandfather clock.
Don't let David Orr hear you say that.
No, I'm pretty sure that if David understood, David gets that it's a type of pendulum,
not the one that our students think it is.
No. I think you remember from the open forum a couple years ago when David was up there, I think for the first time, he put a picture of the robot.
Yes.
Right? And he's like, do you guys actually effing think how this is how it works? And that type of pendulum, rotating from the back of the neck, no. It's not that at all. But there is a type of pendulum involved, with the whole screw axis thing that David loves to talk about now, which I think is revolutionary when it comes to the putting stroke at the moment. The book goes through the first half of it, giving you background information on pendulums and harmonic resonance and gives you real world examples about it. Like, a bicycle going around in a circle. Well, it like, I can't give it away because it's so good, but I recommend
that's fine.
Everybody go out and get the thing. You can get it at CapToeGolf.com under their shop. It's 38 euros, whatever that translates to US, like $40. It's phenomenal. I was really fortunate to get an early copy of it because they asked me to proofread it to make sure that the English actually, kind of made some sense. Because their Italian is very thick. And they wrote it extremely well. I think I only had spelling things to correct. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And it's still to this day is one of the best putting books I've ever read. And, Templeton Putting where Aim Point came from, still a great one. And the one that Jeff Mangum wrote, again, a great one. But this one really gives you an idea of powering the putter from a forces and torques perspective, which I think takes real world examples to like today's work from, what Sasho's up to,
right,
and with what Nesbitt's up to with Brian Manzella. I think that, it's giving us some really cool, practical new age stuff.
That's awesome. So let's help the young coaches. What would you tell your 25-year-old self now if you were in this day and age? What's the roadmap look like, and what do they need to do to start to get better at coaching?
First of all, I'd have to tell my old self, all that stuff you thought was correct, don't think it's correct.
Yeah, that's
right?
good.
Like,
exactly.
I mean, I would love to go back to 2005, find out all my clients list and give them all their money back.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that. But I would say that nowadays it's like, if you think that you know something, poke holes in it. Right. And like the reason I love technology isn't to use it. I try and find its limitations. Right. I know that when I use TrackMan indoors, it's got limitations. When I use FlightScope, it's got these limitations, and it just lets me know it better. And that's where I recommend guys looking at things is once you think you've got something that poke as many holes in it as you can. And, if you decide to go get a K-Vest, go work with the best guys that use K-Vest, and then find people that say that K-Vest sucks and go ask them why. Right. And so you get both sides of it. Going back now, I took Sean's approach where it's like, go to the Oakville Library and read every single book on golf. And when you're done with that library, move on to the next city.
Yeah.
And so I read everything I could. Nowadays, it's getting online. I mean, back in the day when the WRX forum threads were like 300 pages long,
yeah.
You've got Facebook and all these groups. Like the acceleration of the learning is so fast now that it actually exceeds the practical. So I want new guys to spend as much time learning stuff as doing golf lessons. So find a place that lets you give a golf lesson for free, where you don't have to buy a bucket of balls. If you give a percentage away, great. 30% of zero is zero, so no problem. But find a way to get your reps in and figure out ways to help everybody so that the next time someone comes along with $100 or so, you can actually give them a good lesson. So I recommend teach as much as you can, learn from as many people as you can. I started doing shadowing for local guys around here. And when I started doing it, my direct messages on Instagram blew up from guys that said, hey, like, this is really cool. I can't believe you're doing this. And I went, what do you mean you can't believe I'm doing this? Like,
yeah.
This is easy.
You're never too good to shadow. I mean, it's like, I still do it to this day. And I think you can't let your ego get in the way of learning.
Absolutely. Like I talk to, when I do talk to Gary Gilchrist, I mention that every time I'm in Florida, I'd love to come down and shadow just to see what he's up to now, just to see how he's doing it. And, to someone that he's taught a lot so that it's not, a grip stance posture lesson, because I don't need to see those.
Right.
It's just, I want to see how he does it. I love being able to hang out with Sean Foley on tour to see how he works with his guys. Some guys are a little bit private, but some guys are fairly open. I got to hang out with him and Hunter last week, and it was really cool. I think that getting online and learning from the guys that are really good, like yourself, like David Orr, Jeff Smith let me hang out with him down with Aaron Weiss last week. And it was really cool to watch Jeff interact with Aaron and then basically take 2 steps to the left and work with Patrick Rogers, and then take 4 steps to the left and go work with Scott Piercy.
Yeah, and see how different it is, right?
Oh, massively different.
Right.
Totally different golf lessons completely. And the way that he talked to them was not the way that he talked to me. It's like, hey man, like, what are you doing with Patrick Rogers? I see he's trying to rip the hands in on the inside and he's doing all this stuff. Like, isn't that a little excessive? He's like, Nick, we need to make sure that the center of mass gets over here and blah, blah, blah. And then Patrick would turn around and go, what? Right? It's like,
yeah, you're not going to say that to him.
Yeah. Caddy, put the club there. Make sure you don't hit the club. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, very simple. So, I've seen Jeff Smith's info from Vegas. I've seen his stuff just like it's gotten so good, but his communication style has gotten good.
Right.
And I think I think he'll admit to it as well. I think he actually mentioned it to me. Another Foley influence. Right? Foley's had a lot of influence on people out there, David as well, George Gankus, where the influence is on coaching, like, for lack of a better term, on bedside manners.
Right.
You can't yell at a guy because his swing plane is 71, you need it at 65. You just have to figure out a way to get it done as a cheerleader. And I think that's where I would really recommend these young guys nowadays is to go and find out what's the least amount you can say to someone to get them better. But the other thing, from a business standpoint, I'm big on coaching programs, but like monthly coaching programs. So all of my students pay me by the month. They get, 4 to 6 lessons or even more. My juniors probably get, 3 a week sometimes. But they pay me a monthly amount, and that's what you get for Nick. And, I've got students I've been working with for, 45 months now.
Do you have a limit? Do you have a limit on their the time they can come that's the unlimited, right? Unlimited for that month?
Yeah, it's whatever we think that they need to do.
Because that's what I've just started this year. We're doing 3-6. I've been doing a year program for a couple of years, which has worked pretty well. But we just decided to break it down into chunks for people that they're not going to do that much commitment. So you're doing it just by the month.
Well, it's actually, I do it by the year. I just don't tell them it's by the year. I get them to do it for 12 straight months.
Okay.
So it's
all
like,
right. I love it.
I would say that all of my students let me say all. I would say 18 of my students right now have been on the monthly program for 5 years.
Wow. So they just keep re-upping. You just chunk it into little small chunks.
Yep. Sometimes they go away on vacation, or August is tournament month and we're not doing as many. And I usually give them October off. So, revenue's not huge in October, but it's only 1 month a year. I let them off. They go to the gym, they spend their money elsewhere, and they come back in November. And if they've got like one of my guys had an AJGA tournament, didn't play golf, didn't do anything for like a month and a half, and comes to me 5 days before his tournament. I'm like, wow, your swing got messed up. You need to come here every day until you go. Right. And because it's a program that's based on results. So, I've offered a money back guarantee for as long as I've been in golf. If you're not happy with what you've got, no questions asked, here's your money back. And I have never had to give it back, but I always let them know that I'm successful when you're successful. And that's why I love the approach of, working with tour players, where I say, okay, this is where you are now. This is where I think I can get you through these metrics. And this is the amount of money I think that you're going to make additionally. And I want a percentage of that.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
I want to win if they win. If they don't win, I don't get paid, because that becomes a learning experience for me to be able to figure out what I need to do better next time. And if we're paying for learning, what a better way to pay for learning. So I really want to make sure that everybody's successful all at the same time. And I'm kind of known here in Toronto as the junior coach where you go to if you want to get a scholarship. My juniors I'm 100% scholarship placement rate for anybody that came to me and wanted a scholarship. My really good friend, Brendan Ryan, Golf Placement Services, a little plug for him. He's been my guy that's found scholarships for all of my players. And there were times where, he'd come back to town because he's from Oakville. He'd come back to town, would go out for a beer. We talk about someone. He sends a couple texts. Oh, by the way, I got Jimmy a scholarship over at Cal. Like, how? Jeez. I just texted the coach. I told the coach he needed to get a haircut, and I got a guy in Toronto that he needs to work with, and boom, there you go. How's 50%? He knows.
I need that guy right now.
Oh, Brendan is amazing at what he does. He has the contract with all of the boarding schools. So he's got, 300-400 kids under his wing all the time. He's placing people everywhere nonstop. He's the guy. So when I introduced my players to Brendan, and 2 of them just went down last week to TPC Tampa, played golf with Brendan, and Brendan comes back to me and says, okay, this is what I told them that they need to do. This is what they need to get to. So they're coming back down in September. If they can't shoot this score, we're going to have to start looking at different schools because they're not going to make the ones that they want. And he gives them it to them blunt. He gives it to them straight. He gives them a plan. I listen to that plan. We all go through it, and it works. And it always works. So I'm ecstatic to be able to have sending 2 kids down to Southern Miss. College of Charleston got one of the best female golfers Canada's ever seen as a junior. The list goes on and on and on. And it's being able to, let the parents know, hey, if this is what you want, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take, the next 18 months of my monthly program, but I'm going to be at tournaments. Like if the Maple Leafs coach doesn't show up to a game, like he's not coming back. Right. So I have to make sure that I'm at their tournaments. We go to practice rounds together.
So how do you do that and still manage the rest of the kids?
I don't have too many. I don't have as many that I can't control. I'm not the group program kind of thing.
So they're already paying you, like you're including that in that monthly fee.
Absolutely.
And you just go and watch them play and spend time with them. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll watch everybody warm up because, they're going to tee off within about an hour or 2 hours of each other. And then I walk around the whole golf course, see how they're doing it. I bring my binoculars because some kids get a little bit, fret when I watch them. So, I'm on the 7th hole with my binoculars looking at them on 14, So I learned all that from the Gilchrist Academy because we had to go to the tournaments every week and then bring back notes. Hey, Keith did this, Joe did this, blah, blah, blah. This was good. This wasn't good. I saw you walking with your head down for half the holes. What's going on? But I'd never be able to know that if I wasn't there at the time. So practice rounds are important. We talk the night before to make sure that they're doing the right thing and they're not slamming Big Macs before their tournament. And we make sure that they show up at the right time to get the right preparation. And they know that I'm going to be there on 18 going, hey, man, how you feeling? And I never say, would you shoot? I never say, hey, how'd you hit it? It's how you feeling? Things pretty good? Do you want to go inside and talk? You hungry? Like, what's up? And I try to talk to them like I wish their dads would talk to them.
Right.
And if they want to get into golf, I'm right there to listen. And I'm right there to give the feedback. But I just want them to go and play golf, enjoy what they're doing. And at the end of the day, they know that I'm going to be there with a smile on my face. And they're still my buddy, whether they shoot 90 or 70.
How much influence has the junior national team been with you? I know weren't you involved with that a little bit? I read something that you were involved with that.
Not so much. Our junior national team, which is through Golf Canada, they've got 4 awesome coaches. Derek Ingram.
Yeah, Derek's a buddy of mine. I had Mac Hughes on the program a few weeks ago, and I'm so impressed with what they do, and I think that's why they're so prepared.
Yes. Derek is a world leader in how to get someone to practice, to train, to stay on a plan, and to actually see your results. If there was a report card for results, Derek's wins every time. And he's on the men's side of things. So then you got Tristan Mulally, who's just moved to Canada from the UK a little while ago. Again, he's killing it with the girls. All of his girls on his amateur team have now moved on to professional golf, which didn't happen before. So he's doing great things. And Matt Wilson is now involved in the program. Matt is, Matt from Curious Coaches.
Yep, I remember him.
He's phenomenal with getting
good.
people okay, we're going to go hang out at the golf course today. And, we're just going to hang out. And the kid thinks they're just, doing a few things, practicing. And Matt's taking notes, and it's learning style and making sure they're in the right state of mind for the 100-yard shot that they're going to hit, but they're not going to hit 2, and it's really great. So they've built something where they now take their teams out west into Victoria, Vancouver Island, as far west as you can go in Canada, and they train over the winter there. So it's a little rainy. It's not exactly like Florida weather, but the kids get to stay in Canada and they get 3, maybe 4 months of constant training from fitness to mental to equipment to you name it, they're there. So I've never been a coach for the team. I've had players on the team. And obviously those guys I consider my friends. And I love to talk with them whenever I can about, what are you guys doing? But, they're so social media friendly that I get to just to read it right there online.
Sure.
So I'm I think that, Henry Brunton started our national program and he kicked butt with it. I mean, I don't know how many guys he had that are on the PGA Tour. I think I heard a story that Graham DeLatte actually lived with Henry for a while he was on the team. So Henry has obviously an incredible pedigree of developing golfers. And when he stepped down and the other guys started to take over, it took a little while for them to kind of develop and build the new thing away from the Henry era. But where they are right now, it's an absolute honor to be on that team. And I don't know another development program in the world that would outshine what those guys do year round.
No doubt.
It's cool.
So what's new in your life? When's the last time you learned a new skill outside of golf?
A new skill outside of golf. Well, I'm learning to be a dad. I have a 10-week-old at home. Does that count?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, Riley was born.
There's no blueprint for that one, is there?
Not at all. No manual, no nothing. It's take it as it comes. So we're still, it's been 10 weeks now. We're on a 4-hour Groundhog Day, which is wake up, feed, burp, change, sleep, repeat. And it's over and over and over, which is phenomenal. It's like, I feel as though that every day has been the same day for the past 3 months. It's given me a totally different outlook on life. And I think that that's what's really helped me with my coaching. I would say the past 2 months has been some of the most fun and exciting I've had with my golf career, because I can finish up my lesson. I can take 12 steps onto my couch. I can hold Riley, and, you know, I just get to look at him and try and make him smile and make him say some sounds. And it's like I don't care about an alpha war anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's
oh God, you've helped me establish new goals in my life. I've got to put one of those in my house.
That's been the biggest thing that I've really enjoyed. From a training side of things, I've had a guy that's here local. His name's Travis. He's been my junior's personal trainer and fitness trainer for, well, since 2012. It's been 7 years now. And he's taught me so much about like nutrition and, you know, he's taught me about like, I mean, it's kind of popular now, but like your gut, like what's in your gut, like it's an organ for us. Whatever your gut juice is going to affect everything about you. So he's taught me about nutrition. He's taught me about what I'm allergic to. Like, I'm a Mexican food guy. I absolutely love spicy stuff. I'm allergic to it.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea until I went through some tests with him. Now, I don't care. I still eat spicy stuff every day because I love it. But
now you know why you feel bad, right?
Exactly.
Or not feel your best, I guess.
Right. Why am I waking up every morning feeling like crap? Yeah. Oh, I had like 6 ounces of the spiciest stuff you could imagine last night. So starting to learn how to eat, when to eat. I've learned a lot about sleep lately. How do I maximize my sleep in an environment of crying? Yeah. So I'm learning a lot more about like Nick and learning more about people. I'm learning more about what I'm good at and trying to, not pay any attention or put any focus into the things that I might not be good at, but I don't really need to know. Like, again, I don't need to know about the Alpha War. So I'm going to stop, and
double down on your strengths, man. Gary V.
Exactly. I'm going to do what it is that I think that I do best. And, last summer I played 150 rounds of golf because I needed to kind of get into that mindset of a golfer again. But I needed to get a remembrance of, why did I get into this in the first place?
Good for you, man.
So I went and got a membership at Rattlesnake Point, which is a phenomenal course. 2 courses about 10 minutes up the street from me. It's got a U.S. Open qualifier there this year. And I went out and played almost every morning at 7 o'clock. Sometimes I'd get to play by myself. Sometimes I joined up with other members. So I got to meet new people. And my goal was to not tell them that I was a golf coach, because I think you know how that goes.
Yep.
As soon as you tell them, hey, what's wrong with my swing plane?
Yeah,
it's like, well,
ruins your whole day.
You're talking about it. And we're on the 2nd hole. That's what's wrong with it. Yeah. So I found the love of playing. I found the love of practicing. But you know what it taught me? It taught me that I didn't need to change my putting stroke on a left to right putt. I know that I push them. So I close the face a little bit. I make my normal stroke and the ball goes in the hole. So I found, I believe, what Hogan called secrets, just little things that work for you to get the job done and not label them as right or wrong. That's what I learned last year from my own perspective on golf. And I think that it created a whole new love and appreciation for the game and for how people want to improve their game. So, my whole thing with golf is golf experience. I believe that I'm a director of golf experience. And It's trying to find a way to get golfers to enjoy golf better, to have the right information on how to practice if that's what you're choosing to do is practice. But if you don't practice, well, let me take you to the golf course, show you a couple things on decades so you don't blast balls in the water every day you play. Like, let's go play over there. Stop trying to hit a high draw when you're, 14 degrees across the ball. That's not in your game. Don't ever consider it again. So it's finding ways to get people to play golf, have more fun without really changing too much if they don't want to. So I've really found, like, to answer the question a really long way, but I found it's more about me and about people and about how we want to do stuff.
Absolutely. I think you've already answered a few of this context, but what does success mean to you? I'm always curious about this answer.
Smiling. That's success for me.
Joy and happiness.
Absolutely. If I feel as though that I've got satisfaction in doing what I'm doing, and I know that I'm prioritizing things the right way, I'm successful. Success to me has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with how many lessons you teach. It has nothing to do with how good your players are. That's not success. To me, success is having whoever it is that comes to pay me for a lesson finishes it up and says, man, that was the best lesson I've ever had. And that doesn't matter if you're a 40 handicapper or a scratch golfer trying to, get on the Canadian Tour or whatever it may be. To me, that's success. Helping out my peers is a new form of success. So, I love to help out all the young guys that are local that want to come over to my studio and sit there and learn and watch how I do it, or just show up, crack a beer and listen to me and watch me hit golf balls and let me talk about stuff. Because if I'm helping and I'm giving back, that's what I want to do. Like, it's very few people get into golf to become rich, but right. As long as I feel rich inside in terms of, what I'm doing with my family, what I'm able to do with my friends, and, how can I help people as golf as the vehicle, I'm totally successful.
Amen, brother. Affecting other people is where it's at. And that's what you're doing.
100%.
Love that mindset.
Yep.
So good.
Yep, that's totally it. And I help as much as I can in my community. I volunteer my time doing many different things. I started a golf program at an all-girls private school where we got limited flight balls. I had a local guy build up a whole bunch of 7-irons, left, right-handed, different lengths, and then I got someone to donate 15 mats. And we take it out to the soccer field, and they basically get 2 gym classes every year where it's just golf. And being able to give back to those girls is phenomenal because, I haven't done that program in 3 years, and I'll go to the local Starbucks and one of the girls will walk in and go, oh, hey, Coach Nick, you're my coach at St. Mildred's. And it's like, yeah, I probably was. There's 600 of you. And then they say, I still play golf now because of you.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
How good does that make you feel,
And who do you play golf with them? It's perfect because then their dads are like, yeah, thanks for getting them into golf. Now I get to play more.
There you go.
It's a total win-win.
What pisses you off?
Wow. How much we have to charge for golf lessons. Because I think I made a post the other day. I said, great golf lessons are expensive because bad lessons are overpriced. And I feel as though that the golf business is somewhat of the wild, wild west, that there's no reform, there's no structure to the point where anybody's saying, well, why do you deserve to charge $120 an hour for a lesson? And that's where that kind of stuff really drives me nuts to see, people come to see me and say, well, this guy charged me $1,000 for golf lessons and all he wanted me to do was stand taller with my butt out and my head up. And it's like, okay, well, let's do the opposite of that and let's get you to hit the ball better. And 5 minutes later, it's, I've never hit the ball better in my life. Yeah. But you spent $1,000 on this other guy who you might have been his only client ever. So I wish that there was some type of thing where until you taught X amount of lessons that you can prove that you did it, you can only charge a certain amount. So that type of stuff in the golf business pisses me off. But I would say that outside of golf, you're not going to find too much that really pisses me off because I really don't care anymore. I've stopped caring about so much stuff that used to bug me. The block button, the mute button on social media has been wonderful. I just don't listen. I don't need to listen to that garbage and let it affect me because if it affects me, then I take it home to my wife. And that's not fair. I've had some funky, I'm just going to say funky incidences with, some of the juniors' parents who might be a little bit overbearing or too much, or, I had a parent that was texting me from their kid's computer pretending they were them.
Oh my gosh.
Like I've had lots of stuff like that going on. And, that used to bother me a whole bunch, but now, hey, you know what? Like, you totally broke trust, which is a massive part of coaching. Best of luck. See ya. And I have no problem now. And I had a hard time with it when I was at a private country club, because you can't say no. You cannot say no, because you say no to one person, they tell everybody.
Yeah,
so
I'm at the same situation.
Yeah, I said yes to everybody and their friends and anybody that they refer to, I had to say yes to. Yeah. But now I'm in a situation where I don't. If I'm not enjoying it because either they don't care or they know better than me, well, Jordan Spieth doesn't do that. Why do I have to do it?
Yeah.
Hey, you're 13. Stop pretending you're Jordan Spieth. But if that continues, hey, like why? And that's my question to them. If we get to a point, so tell me why we're doing this right now. Why are we doing this together? And why do you want to take advice from me? Your parents are paying a lot of money for this. Why are we arguing over stuff that has no effect on what you're doing? And if it continues, you know what? Okay, hey, no problem. I have no problem letting go of my best player who's probably going to make it to the tour one day if I leave the lesson and I go inside and go, holy, what the hell was going on? Like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not,
You've changed so much since the first time I met you.
Oh man, I want to enjoy stuff. I want to find the fun. And no one says it better than the girl who's the finder of joy, right? Sarah Dixon showed following her and seeing what she does.
She's amazing.
She just loves everything. And that's the way I want to be. She's an inspiration to me, whether she knows it or not. She probably doesn't, but that's inspirational to me. I've gotten closer with Jason Hellman over the past 3 or 4 years than I have in the past. And Jason's another guy that's just, man, he's in a great mood all the time. Mm-hmm. He has a positive outlook on stuff. Sometimes he's wacky as hell, but so are every other great golf coach. But you know what? He's always in a good mood. He's always positive, and I've always had great conversations with him. So that's why I consider him a good friend. And I look for more guys like that now, where before, I might look at one of my peers and go, man, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, therefore he's an idiot. No, now I look at him and go, what does he do really well? What does that guy do really well in my business? Because that's what I'm going to focus on now. And that's changed me completely. So I love everything about golf, and I love your podcast because you're getting people on that are real. I could listen to the Trevino one over and over and over again.
It's classic.
Because that's as real as it gets.
Yeah.
It is. It's as real as it gets. And if more people can be like that, instead of potentially, keeping their information secret or hiding what they're doing, that's not helping anybody. So, years ago I resurrected the Ontario Golf Teaching Summit. I did a conference on academy management, and the whole thing was a rising tide raises all ships. And that's where I go with it. I want to make sure that if everybody's going up, we're all going to be more successful in however we determine that word, whatever that word means to us. But I want to make sure that everybody around me is doing the best that they can. So if I'm not talking like that, and if I'm not displaying that attitude, then it's not going to happen. So I feel as though that if there's something that I'm a leader in, that I try to be a leader in, it's a leader in a positive, forward-thinking, progressive approach that everybody can help everybody.
That's beautiful, man. If we had more people like you, I mean, we'd have less trouble online, obviously. Yep. With people arguing about stuff that really doesn't matter, is not pushing our industry forward. Mm-hmm. And a lot more people be getting better at golf. So
I think so too.
Kudos for that, man. It's I love that mindset.
Yeah, collaboration is my word right now. And
Me too.
I mentioned all the guys that are local here who I think are the best instructors around. And I hope that one day before we all retire, that we're all at the same golf club. Like, how good would it be if all 6 million people in Toronto knew you go to Glen Abbey because that's where the best 6 or 7 instructors in the province, that's where they work. Like, no one would go anywhere else. And think of the learning. Think of the talks over beers at night. Oh my gosh, you know. So
just like my mind melds at the PGA show, man. You know how that goes.
Exactly. I love that stuff. The whole mastermind thing you put together. I mean, I think that I'm friends with all of those guys now, and I respect all of those guys because they had the same mindset that you did of going in there and, you know, and sharing. And sharing on a level that started on friendship, that didn't start on don't piss on my fire hydrant. I can't tell you this stuff. You're my competition. No, I don't believe that anybody is my competition in anything, because if someone wants to see me, they're going to come see me. And if they don't like my jokes, they're going to go see someone else. Cool. No problem. Exactly. I'll find someone else.
Yep. There's plenty of students to go around.
Absolutely.
All right. Yep. So one final question. You know what it is. Mm-hmm. If you had the gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would you put on it to get the message out to the billions of people that we've been talking about? What would it say and why?
Take lessons from full-time golf teachers, please. I have to say it. That's exactly what it is. Find a teacher that teaches full-time, and that's the person that you go see for your help.
Do some research, maybe?
Yeah, definitely research. I wish there was some more. I think there's, you know, more methods and more avenues on where we can find stuff. You know, I wish that the PGA was a little bit more forthcoming in saying, hey, like, these are the guys that do it full time. These are our experts. You know, not to say that, you know, my mom can't go to any golf pro and take a lesson, because I'm pretty sure that any golf pro can fix, you know, some grip and someone that swings it at 12 miles an hour. But I think that if you're looking to improve your game, you have to go and work with someone who has a track record of game improvement, not swing improvement, not radar improvement. Did you lower your handicap? And so when people come to see me, they ask me what they can expect. And I say, you can expect me to have your full attention. You can reach me 24/7, and I'm going to drop 30% of your handicap in 3 months.
That's awesome. Who would not want to go see that guy?
Well, yeah. Right? I mean, if you wanted to go give your money to someone to invest, what are you going to ask? Well, how much money did you make the last guy?
What results can I expect?
Totally. You're not going to go give your $5 million to someone who's 23 that just graduated school.
And it amazes me at some of these people that are successful in whatever they're doing don't take the time to do the homework before they go and get a bad experience, which makes the other quality coaches look bad. Exactly.
And that's exactly it. It's like, I'm the same reason when I was with Flight Scope. What was the question that you think that I got every time when I talked to someone about Flight Scope?
Is it accurate?
What's the difference between Flight Scope and
TrackMan? Yeah, TrackMan.
Oh, God. Like, I'd never want to answer that question again. So it's the same thing now. It's like, well, why are you so much more expensive than the guy down the street? Well, first of all, you called him guy down the street. But second of all, like, how about this track record of what it is that I've done? Like, here's my list. Where's his list or her list? Right. Now, not to say, like, I don't want to throw my peers under the bus, because the Canadian PGA, PGA of Canada has an amazing education program. They're now kind of, you know, working on trying to teach our guys how to teach golf, but also how to be golf coaches. So if anybody in Canada has gone through the teaching modules all the way up to coach of new competitors and coaching developing competitors, I don't care if you haven't taught too many lessons, you've got some pretty good info. Sure. I'm good with you. But I think that that the golf business is so tough up here, because most guys, you know, only work for 9 months a year, that once they've finally done their pro shop shift, they'd love to go get that $120 an hour. And I don't want them to stop that. I think that it's great that they're able to do it. But
just take some pride in the fact that they've got a huge responsibility, and to go find more information, right? I mean, I just hate the lazy kids or the lazy guys out there that are teaching the same thing they taught 15 years ago, and then complain that, like you said, you're getting more money or you're charging more.
Right. Like, what do you think I've been doing the whole time? I'm not lucky enough to get a salary from a club, you know, maybe have full benefits like you've got. Like, I don't have any of that. I have to fend for myself. There are days where I don't get to work. Not that I don't want to, I just don't get to. you know? So, well, back in the day. So now it's more about like, I want people to make sure that they're doing their research to get the right golf lessons so that they're not wasting their money, so that golf isn't slowing. I want golf to grow. And, you know, I've used the hashtag slow golf when I've found that, you know, that there's things that are not good for the industry. You know, people say golf's dying. I don't know if it is or it's not, whatever. But we have to make sure as PGA pros that we're not the cause of that we're actually helping golf grow by giving better information. So Sean Foley said it best years ago. He's like, if one of your members walks into the pro shop and says, what does Butch Harmon teach? If someone there doesn't know it, that person's going to leave and you guys all failed. Right. So as a golf teacher, I feel as though it's my responsibility to know as much as I can so that I have the answers for people so they don't go next door. Because that's the worst thing that could happen. So I think that the young guys should just keep reading, keep learning, keep shadowing, and don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a knock on your ego if you don't know how to help a golfer with a swing move.
Right.
Somebody does. Go hunt them down. Because when I get my little group of guys that I mentor, when they send me swing videos of the players they're working on, the first thing I ask them is, what are you doing with the guy? What do you think? What do you see?
Sure.
You know, like, where are you going with it? And if they're honest now, they're like, man, I don't even know what to do with this guy. His elbow is like all the way over here and the club's doing that. It's like, okay, great. Well, now we like think about doing it something like this. They go to the next lesson. It works out really well. I get a text. Hey, man, that thing worked. He made me feel like he said I was a superstar. Good.
There you go.
I'm glad that he said you were the superstar and not me. I don't need to be the hero.
Right.
Right? It's you. So if the experienced experts can help the young guys make them look good, that's how the rising tide raises all ships.
There it is. Boom.
That's it.
You're a beauty, man.
Sweet.
Absolutely. So give the listeners your social handles, how they can get a hold of you. I really, your website's awesome, by the way. And I'm just so excited with all the work you're doing and just keep up the great work. But give everybody how they can get a hold of you and say hello and say thank you.
Pretty much everywhere is at Nick Starchuck, Instagram mostly. And if you wanted to get in touch with me regarding CapToe, it's nick@captoegolf.com. That's my new fun toy. And I'm happy to talk and help anybody with that system, even the guys that have already bought it. Please feel free, give me a call, ask me some questions. I love the evening chats with fellow users about what they're seeing. Again, it just that's success to me. So that's how you can find me, and feel free to reach out anytime. If you're in Toronto, please feel free to come shadow anytime. My home's nice and comfy.
There you go, man. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks so much for sharing this information. And your mindset and your passion is infectious, and I know you've affected a lot of the listeners, so I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This was awesome. To be on your podcast is a badge of honor.
You got it, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jason.
What's up, everybody? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you jump off the treadmill, get out of your car, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for subscribing, and make sure you download the episode. That is very important. Big thank you also to Nick for coming on the show and sharing some incredible knowledge and information that will help all of you coaches out there, help your players, and also some great personal development stuff that is really important to living a better life. I think he shared some really cool ideas and has given me a new goal in life, which is teaching out of my house. So make sure you reach out to Nick on Instagram or Twitter at Nick Starchuck, and check out his website at nickstarchuck.com. Also check my stuff out. Check me out at the Twitter. Please give me a follow, and on Instagram at Golf Guru TV on both platforms. Also look at my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. If you want to leave a comment or a question, we will be having a Q&A session here soon. So please send in your questions at golfgurushow@gmail.com, or hit me up on the DM, anything that you want to do. This show and all episodes of the Golf Guru Show were produced by myself, Jason Sutton. Music is by Zach Mullet, aka Cutta Beats. Leave me an iTunes review and a rating. 5-star rating would be incredible. And as I leave you with the Jim Rohn mantra that I live by, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining me.